The Hunger Games is one of the most efficient, well-paced, and focused books of modern YA literature. Suzanne Collins uses the first chapter to characterize Katniss Everdeen, the point of view character, then spends the rest of the novel exploring the central themes using the framework Katniss creates. Every piece works together behind the scenes to create this illusion of a real thing, fitting seamlessly together, and even though the reader knows it's fiction, it feels like real events happening to real people. Speaking of real people, nothing about this video was made with the assistance of generative AI. All of these thoughts are my own, and while I may get things wrong, any mistake is entirely a product of my humanity and not AI hallucinations. The Hunger Games opens with Katniss entering the forest, which is illegal in this post-Civil War America called Panem, so she can hunt and forage to survive. Her father died before the events of the book, leaving her to care for her mother, who is a healer, and her younger sister, whom she adores. While there, she meets up with Gale, another teenager from her town of District 12, and they discuss the capital, which Gale hates, but Katniss believes hating is a waste of energy. We see her disdain for her sister's cat. Katniss sees the creature as another mouth to feed and a drain on her meager resources, but she loves her sister, so she tolerates the cat. Katniss is very straightforward and almost unpleasant by our standard of manners, but it's hard to dislike her for it. Her life is difficult, and she's had to grow up fast because of it. There's very little in these first few pages that has to do with the Hunger Games themselves. We learn it's Reaping Day, the day children from each district are chosen to compete in the games, and that Katniss's name is in the lottery more times than usual to get extra food for her family. But that's it. The majority of the page space is about Katniss. Her characterization can be broken down into a handful of traits and beliefs that echo across every other character and event in the story. She believes kindness and trust are luxuries, as we see in her interactions with the cat, and saves most of her kindness for her sister. To her, the highest form of failure is failing to protect the ones she loves, and she believes rebellion is pointless. The capital, the rulers of Panem, are too powerful, and the 12 districts would be easily divided and quashed as they were in the war 74 years ago. Katniss is a protector and a provider. She's excellent at hunting and taking care of the bare necessities, but isn't great at healing or nurturing. That's more of her younger sister's wheelhouse. She also doesn't care about what people think of her, and consequently has a hard time lying. The only face she puts on is the one to protect her from the capital, keeping her head down and keeping quiet. This first morning we spend with Katniss is in her world. We get the feeling this is how most days go, and other than it being Reaping Day, nothing especially unusual is happening. Through the inclusion of Gale and the cat, we get all the information we need to understand who Katniss is, and by the end of the story, how she'll have to change to succeed. Now we need to look at how Suzanne Collins defines the secondary characters in relation to Katniss. Let's start with the three already mentioned, Katniss's mother, her sister, and her friend Gale. All three are crucial to understanding Katniss's backstory and her actions in the first 10% of the book. Gale is Katniss's oldest friend, and there's romantic tension between them right off the bat. He and Katniss are both providers for their families, and they each have taken care of the other's family at some point in the past. They are kind to each other. In contrast, though, Gale believes in revolution, and this disagreement teases out their differences. He is fierier than Katniss, much more prone to action, and much more willing to put himself on the line. Katniss's sister Prim is the object of most of Katniss's kindness, protection, and providing. Unlike Katniss, Prim is a healer, and she's incredibly kind to everything and everyone. At her core, Katniss feels like she has to be this tough provider so Prim can be a trusting healer. Prim builds the foundation of Katniss's character, and is the reason behind most of the decisions Katniss makes in these initial chapters. Katniss's mother is also a healer. She is the reason Katniss hunts, and one of the reasons Katniss is so jaded. Katniss watched her mother fail in the worst way in Katniss's mind, the cardinal sin. Her mother didn't protect and provide for Katniss and Prim after Katniss's father's death. She was so consumed by grief, Katniss had no choice but to start poaching and foraging in the woods after she and Prim were on the brink of starvation. The deep love Katniss's mother has for her husband caused her inaction and therefore her failure, another contributing factor to Katniss's lack of emotions, or at least the suppression of them. This dark period is also when Gale stepped up to help Katniss and her family, cementing their bond. The next set of secondary characters are introduced and fleshed out around the 10 to 20% mark of the book. Peeta Mellark is a boy from District 12, Katniss's age. He's the son of the town baker, slightly more affluent and much less starving than Katniss and her family. He and Katniss have interacted only once in the past, when he gave her a few loaves of bread during the dark time after her father's passing. From his introduction, he is consistently kind, so much so that Katniss is suspicious of him. No one can be that nice. Unlike Katniss, he understands how to use his image to further his goals, how to get people to like him. Effie Trinket is a mentor from the Capitol meant to help the tributes chosen at the Reaping navigate the new world they're being thrust into. She dresses in wild, over-the-top styles, tying her character heavily to cultivated image. And while she has a very different foundation of manners than the District 12 characters, she's not unkind, just naive, which is ironically how she sees them. Haymitch Abernathy is the last Hunger Games victor from District 12, and with that honor comes the responsibility of mentoring each year of tributes. He is Katniss's mirror. He has a terrible, gruff image. He's one of the least nurturing people she's ever met, and he takes his licks lying down. He's a bit of a coward. The key difference here isn't a difference at all, but an evolution. Haymitch has mentored District 12 tributes for the last 24 years. In those 24 years, not a single one of them has won. He has spent his entire adult life failing to protect children who rely on him, the thing both he and Katniss see as the worst kind of failure. These decades of consistent, horrific failure have broken him to his core, turning him into an alcoholic afraid to care or hope. The final set of characters are introduced through the end of the first third of the novel. Coriolanus Snow, the president of Panem, and the game makers of the Hunger Games are the characters we see the least of directly, but hang over the narrative like a dark cloud. They trust no one, including themselves, and understand how to manipulate image in the form of state propaganda to enforce the idea that rebellion is pointless. Cinna is a capital citizen and a fashion stylist. His whole character is built around understanding the power of carefully manipulating his and others' images. Rue is another tribute in the Hunger Games and the only character in this list not from the Capitol or District 12. She, like Katniss, is at home in the forest and back in her district provides for her younger siblings. But Rue is kind, reminding Katniss of Prim and activating Katniss's protect and provide instinct. Every secondary character can be defined through the lens of Katniss's characterization, established in the first few pages of the novel. The main character is the main character for a reason, and every character is a variation on a few different traits, highlighting their similarities and differences. This tight writing distributes the characters of the world around central themes. Each character has a different combination of stances, and it makes examining the higher-level ideas feel effortless and natural. The two most important themes in the Hunger Games are propaganda and solidarity, and Katniss starts the story on the losing side of both. I won't dive in too deep to these themes right now, but rather will discuss them through major plot points and character decisions as Collins does. Based on everything established about Katniss, let's take a look at where she stands at the beginning of the book. Katniss has grown up surrounded by capital propaganda, but doesn't think of her image, the way people perceive her, as something she has control over, any more than to just blend into the background. She judges people at a very surface level, thinking Effie a frivolous capital drone and Haymitch a useless mess, and doesn't believe she has the ability to control how people see her. In the beginning of the story, Katniss is emotionally closed off, loving only Prim and believing Prim is the only one who loves her. The Capitol, on the other hand, massively relies on propaganda to control the districts and cement their power. They successfully manipulate the emotions of all of their citizens to maintain control. The ones who weaponize their image to control the hearts and minds of the people are the ones who succeed in this world. The people of Panem are, for the most part, too busy trying to ensure their own survival to attempt to improve living conditions on a collective scale, Katniss included. She doesn't have time or energy to protect anyone other than her family and maybe Gale. Kindness is a luxury. This is why the Hunger Games exist, to pit children of each district against each other, to make the districts root for the death of other districts' children in a desperate attempt to get their kids home safe. The root of why Katniss is anti-revolution at the beginning of the book is because she believes the people won't rise up, that the lone revolutionaries will be easily cut down. We see pockets of revolutionary thought, mostly in Gale, and some backstory involving District 13, the district that attempted revolution years ago and was wiped off the map. But Katniss herself believes revolution is doomed to fail from the start. Revolution is doomed because there is no solidarity. As a quick side note, another creative who writes this theme really well and really consistently is Bong Joon-ho. In his movies, the working-class characters who turn on their peers always fail, and those who stand together succeed. Now, without further ado, let's discuss how all these pieces are woven together into a plot that feels surprising, satisfying, and engaging. These side characters, with their differing beliefs and goals, make choices that cause Katniss to make choices in reaction to them, naturally exploring the two themes and instigating Katniss's character growth that will allow her to succeed by the end of the story. Prim being randomly chosen to compete in the Hunger Games by Effie Trinket is the inciting incident that kicks off the entire trilogy's conflict. Collins does two things very well to make this moment hit hard. One is characterization, and one is misdirection. From page 1, it's established that Katniss will do anything, risking life and limb, to protect Prim. Katniss is a fighter, and fights most viciously when her sister is at risk. Conversely, Prim is a healer, not a warrior. She wouldn't stand a chance at winning. When Prim is reaped, Katniss has to volunteer to save her sister's life. It would be out of character for her not to. The misdirection, however, is the thing I appreciate more. We know Prim's name is in the lottery once, while Katniss's name is in many times. The number of entries increases by 1 for each child each year, and in addition to that, Katniss puts her name in extra times for extra ration coupons to feed her family. The reader, like Katniss, is afraid she will be chosen, leaving Prim and her mother behind to fend for themselves. This is what makes a great inciting incident. There's tension from page 1. A major event is coming that could potentially go bad for the main character. The key here is the main event is within the character's normal sphere of operations, and they're bracing for the bad outcome. Katniss is almost expecting it. This creates that tension for the reader. But then, the major event occurs, and it goes far worse than the main character or the reader could ever imagine, forcing the main character to make a choice that will set the plot of the whole story in motion. After traveling to the capital, Katniss's stylist Cinna prepares her for the opening chariot ride, the event that will introduce the tributes to the world. In the past years, District 12 tributes were all dressed as coal miners, which Katniss thinks is expected and not memorable. It is important at this stage for Katniss to become a fan favorite. Survival in the arena often depends on the gifts from viewers, and she knows this, but she doesn't know how to win people over. That's where Cinna comes in. Katniss has an image problem, and he is half the solution. Cinna dresses Katniss and Peeta in fabric that, when lit on fire, burns without hurting the wearer. She makes her debut as the girl on fire, and the crowd goes wild. For the first time, Katniss understands what image can do for her, convincing people who have never met her before to cheer for her success. And if Cinna is the first half of Katniss's arc in understanding image, Peeta is the second and more important. During the opening chariot ride, he holds Katniss's hand, linking them, but the real fireworks come in the Caesar Flickerman interview. Leading up to the interview, Peeta asks to be coached by Haymitch separately from Katniss, which causes her to become suspicious. It's not uncommon for tributes from the same district to betray each other, though it never wins them any favors with the audience. Going into the late-night talk show-style interview, Katniss is incredibly nervous. She believes she isn't a likable person, but she does passably well. In Peeta's interview, she watches, unable to stop him, as he declares his lifelong love for her on national TV. As soon as Peeta returns backstage, Katniss attacks him. Furious, he's reduced her to an object of affection instead of a fighter. She's a bad liar, a terrible manipulator, so when confronted with Peeta's ability to control his image and, by extension, hers, she doesn't know what to do. She's confused, angry, and about to head into an arena where she'll have to fight for her life. As soon as Katniss enters the arena and the opening gong sounds, she bolts for the trees. She waits for no one, makes no alliance, knowing the deadly tributes called careers will be picking off as many other weaklings as possible in these first few minutes. The careers, like Katniss, volunteered for the Hunger Games. But unlike Katniss, they did it for glory, having trained their whole lives to be killing machines. Katniss is terrified of them, and she reverts to her comfort zone, alone in the woods. She makes no attempt at allyship, and is shocked when she finds out Peeta has joined the Career Alliance. The pack move through the arena, picking off other tributes one by one, until eventually they start hunting Katniss, who is terrified and alone. When Katniss is treed by the group of careers, Rue quietly alerts her to a nest of tracker-jackers in the branches, helping Katniss escape without expecting anything in return. This act of kindness causes Katniss to search for Rue after she's recovered from facing the careers. The two form an alliance, the first relationship Katniss fully trusts since arriving in the capital. They bond over their siblings and hatch a plan to destroy the career's food stores. This is the first big offensive action Katniss takes in the games, and she only does it because she is now working with Rue. She has someone to protect, someone to trust, and someone who cares for her. Katniss successfully blows up the career's food, but Rue, who was acting as a distraction, is caught and dealt a mortal wound. Katniss arrives moments too late to save Rue, but kills the career girl who killed her and sings her little ally to sleep for the last time. Katniss then decorates Rue's body with flowers, adorning her and making her beautiful, showing how much Katniss loved her through the image she creates. Once Rue's body is collected, District 11, Rue's home district, sends Katniss a loaf of bread as a gift. And this is the moment that breaks me every time I read this book. It is the greatest act of solidarity. District 11's other tribute is still alive. Gifts are terribly expensive, but they pool their money to send this bread to Katniss instead of spending it on something that could help their child win. I get goosebumps every time I think about it, and Katniss understands the gravity of the gift as well. She verbally thanks the people of District 11, reaching across the district boundaries in the very event the capital is trying to use to deepen divides. After Rue's death, Katniss falls into an almost catatonic depression, mirroring her mother's depression from the beginning of the book. The difference is, to Katniss, her lack of action is acceptable because she has no one to protect anymore. This all changes when the Game Masters announce a new rule. There can be 2 winners if both tributes are from the same district. Katniss goes wild, spending every waking minute searching for Peeta. She has someone to protect again. She feels hope. And so do we as the reader. We want to see both Katniss and Peeta survive. Suzanne Collins uses this bias against us. Absolutely nothing we know about the Capitol tells us they'd let 2 players win. They want the most dramatic show possible every year, and they are perfectly fine with lying to do it. We should know they're lying now. We should know they're putting their thumb on the scales to get a season finale that will keep their audience hooked. But we're hopeful, so we don't think critically, and neither does Katniss. Katniss finds Peeta bleeding profusely from a wound given to him by the career pack. He's infected, feverish, and Katniss has to nurse him back to health. She has to do the thing she's terrible at, healing, nurturing, and emotional availability to bring him back from the brink of death. She confesses her love for Peeta in hopes it will inspire the viewers to send her a gift of medicine, allowing her to heal him, manipulating her image to save an ally. Like the inciting incident, The Hunger Games has an expertly executed climax. After defeating the final career, Katniss and Peeta assume they're now the winners, but the Capitol reneges on the multiple winners' decision, effectively forcing Katniss and Peeta into a doomed love-death match. But Katniss doesn't fight. Instead, she and Peeta eat poisonous berries simultaneously, threatening the Capitol with the possibility of no victors. And it works. The Capitol reverses its decision again, letting both her and Peeta leave the arena alive. In the end, Katniss's success relies on her finally understanding the importance of image. She understands that for the Capitol's propaganda machine to work, they have to have a victor. It gives the districts both hope that next year their kid will be the one to come home and someone other than the Capitol to blame for their children's deaths. Additionally, she finally trusts Peeta. He could very well let her kill herself and return home victorious. But the character growth she's experienced throughout the novel allows her to trust him, and the cherry on top is the method. Katniss does it all with poisonous berries, using her foraging skills that saved her and her family's life all those years ago. The ending of the Hunger Games is satisfying because every piece of it is earned. The Katniss we meet in the opening pages wouldn't have decorated Rue with flowers, she wouldn't have tried to save Peeta, and she wouldn't have trusted him to form the pact that leads to their mutual survival. The Capitol's two-winner twist doesn't feel contrived. The book is way more character-driven than it appears on the surface. And if you haven't found one new thing to appreciate, here's my final Hail Mary. Water is life and survival, literally and metaphorically. Katniss spends much of the first few days in the arena searching for water. It saves her when she's burned by flaming projectiles launched by the Capitol. We'll touch on fire later. It leads her to Peeta, and she covers her tracks by walking in streams, keeping her safe. When she's nursing Peeta back to health, it rains constantly, hiding them from the final few careers. And when the Capitol wants to force the final confrontation in the games, they remove all water from the arena, making the final tributes meet for the last battle to the death at the lake in the middle. The forest is freedom and protection. Katniss saves her family by studying the forest, learning what parts of it she can use to her advantage. It's where she feels the safest, the only time she's protected from the Capitol's surveillance. She sprints for the trees in the first moments of the game, and they hide her from the other tributes. When she's trapped by the careers, she climbs a tree to safety, and much of her initial connection with Rue is based on their shared knowledge of the woods. Katniss's name ties together both the water and the forest symbolism. Katniss is an edible plant that can be found at the boundary where a body of water meets the trees. Fire is destruction and also rebellion. It's fire that defines Katniss's external image, the thing that will eventually lead to rebellion in the districts, but it's also damaging to Katniss. Her opening ceremony outfit wins her fans but makes her a target. She's burned early on by the game masters in the arena. Lighting fires as a diversion is what gets Rue killed, but allows her to destroy the career's food. Katniss is the girl on fire, and that is dangerous in more ways than one. Song is love. Katniss's father teaches her folk songs, songs that have been handed down through generations of District 12 people. And Peeta says the moment he fell in love with Katniss was on the first day of kindergarten when he heard her sing. Katniss sings to Rue as she dies, just as she sang to Prim when her sister couldn't sleep because she was so hungry. And I can't discuss song without discussing the Mockingjay. It's a hybrid between a capital mutation and a mockingbird, a creature that repeats snippets of song over and over. In the beginning of the book, an unlikely character gives Katniss a Mockingjay pin after she volunteers for the games, making Katniss realize more people care about her than she initially thought. The Mockingjays repeat the final song she sings for Rue. They are the embodiment of song, and by extension, the enduring spirit of love, carrying the music forward, scattering it throughout the forests for all to hear. Katniss's public image is that of the Mockingjay and of the girl on fire. She inspires the people to revolution, and she does it by spreading both song and flame, love and destruction. Thank you so much for watching. There is a lot I left out in an attempt to keep this video a reasonable length. The mutations, the Mockingjay pin, other tributes like Thresh and Foxface, and I'd love to hear from you if you think there's something I didn't include that I should have. Until next time, I'm the Story Hoarder. Thank you very much.